Hey, it's Kimm. Thanks for joining me. So this video, I'm going to show you how I transformed this old box into a memory box for my daughter-in-law. So let's just get started. I began by removing the old hardware and filling in the holes and some of the damage with Elmer's wood filler using a spatula, but not all the damage. I wanted to keep some of the character to it. And once it was dry, I sanded it using a 180 grit sandpaper and my mouse sander. Went to my local Home Depot and got a can of Bear chalk paint. I had them tint it in the color Summer Crush, which is perfect for a baby girl. Before I started painting, I did clean the entire box inside and out with just a little vinegar and water to clean off any oil or any other type of stains that may be on it so it won't seep through the paint. I always find it so satisfying to watch time-lapse videos of people painting. This is the first time that I tried the Bear chalk paint. Now you can get it tinted in any of the Bear colors, which is really awesome. I wanted this nice baby pink, and this worked out perfect for me. It is a really thin paint, but it covers very well. I really liked it because it didn't show the brush strokes as much as the Rust-Oleum chalk paint, which I do have to thin out with water sometimes to hide the brush strokes. After I put on 3 coats of the pink paint, I measured out the center of the lid, put down a strip of the painter's tape to start some stripes. Then I used 2 small little pieces of tape in between just to measure out the width of the stripes. After I had all the stripes laid down with the tape, I then used the pink base color and painted the stripes first with that, just to stop any bleeding from happening from underneath the tape. This works really well. I then used the Rust-Oleum chalk paint in linen white to paint the stripes. I put on 3 coats of the white chalk paint. While I was waiting in between some of the coats to dry, I did put a stencil in the front. I thought it kind of looked nice. So here you can see that there is no bleeding when I pull off the stripes. Nice perfect lines. The tape, however, did pull up a couple of spots of the pink paint I touched up later on. These little sponge sanders I found at Princess Auto. I thought they were perfect for little projects like this. I used it to sand off a little of the edges of the white paint and then just lightly sanded the entire box. I did a little bit more sanding along the edges just to rough them up a little bit more to give it that old antique type look. Then I cleaned up my sanding mess with my Dyson. I love my Dyson. No, I'm not sponsored. I'm just saying I love my Dyson. Next, I wanted to add a stencil on the top, and I probably did this the hard way, but I printed out the wording that I wanted. I ended up printing it out in reverse, probably didn't need to. I took my pencil first and I colored in the edges of the printed side. When I put it down, I was able to use the pencil to trace over, and that transferred the pencil design onto the wood. Once I was done, you could see the letters faintly, but they were there. Now, if this is something that you'd like me to do a tutorial for, please let me know in the comments and I will do another video separately just for this. Because the pencil lines that I transferred onto the wood was really faint, I used a Sharpie just to trace them out a little bit more. When I did get to the end, I thought I could fill in the words with the Sharpie, but it wasn't working out so well. So I just pulled out some black craft paint and painted in the letters. That worked out really well. I really liked how it turned out. After the paint was dry, I picked up my Princess Auto sanding sponge and just went over the letters a little bit just to match it up with the rest of the box to look at a little shabby chic antique-y looking. I'd pre-cut a bunch of different types of fabric to put on each side of the inside of the box, and I labeled them all with a small piece of the painter's tape just so I knew where to put each one. I used a painting sponge and applied the Mod Podge on the inside of the box, working each side one at a time. Next, I took all the pieces of hardware and painted them with the Rust-Oleum white linen chalk paint again. On the pieces that had designs on them, I painted it and wiped it off quickly just so the paint stuck into the grooves of the designs a little bit, just to give it a little more rustic look. Next, I used the Bear decorative wax in the clear finish and covered the box in the clear wax. And I do believe you're supposed to wait till the wax is dry to wipe it off, but I like to wipe the excess off right away. I've never had a problem with that in the past. Then I finished it off with the Bear antique wax just to give it the old antique look. Don't be scared when you're putting it on. It does go on very dark, but because I used the clear wax underneath, if you do make a mistake and there's too much on, you can always use the clear wax over top of the antique wax to take off some of the antique wax. Next, I added the hardware. Now, the little tiny screws that came with this hardware, they were so tiny I didn't have a screwdriver to fit. So lucky thing I had this general smartphone toolkit because it had like tiny little bits that I could actually put in to the little tiny screws. So I'm glad I had something that actually fit in these little tiny screws because they were extremely tiny. By the time I got to the corner pieces, they had the tiniest little nails. So I'm glad that this toolkit had a pair of tweezers because I actually had to use the tweezers to hold the nails to nail them in. So after I installed all of the hardware, I just took a little bit of the white chalk paint on my fingers and just touched up the screw nails and the nail heads so they would blend in with the rest of the hardware. So I thought the top of the box needed a little something after I added all of the fabric inside. So I took some ribbon and my glue gun and just trimmed off the top and just added a nice little finish. And I also had enough ribbon to do the inside corners as well. Here is the finished product. Now my daughter-in-law loved it. I hope you do too. If you do, please hit the like. Don't be afraid to subscribe and turn on the little bell. That way you'll get all the notifications whenever I submit a new video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Ciao.